In the impossible hush of tyranny, the Invictus scorched a gale-force trail. Humanity's indomitable warship defied the ill shape the Imperium flowed through, leading to a war which would rend apart what had taken thousands upon thousands of years to build, a cosmic beginning to a new era. But far from the stars that would eventually come to be orbit within the embrace of the Galactic Empire, planets lay untouched by the influence of an overlord bent on securing their fate. For millennia, alien empires reigned supremely over the stars, their civilizations far superseding organic minds. In that old lady's world, these ancient hierarchies, humanity was reduced to its myth, its irrelevance, a species too primitive, too volatile, too diverse to ever threaten the might of their star tormentors. But hidden in the shadow of this apparently impregnable pure order, a silent revolution had begun on the fringes of the known world. At clandestine research outposts and top-secret military complexes on barren moons and rogue asteroids, the best minds of human ingenuity toiled. They did not intend to suffer oppression as they always had. They weren't waiting for someone to save them, but instead would rise to take with force what was always denied, the right to rule the stars. They formed clandestine alliances, sharing resources and knowledge that had previously been the domain of myth. Out of this crucible of determination, the Invictus was forged, a warship that was constructed not simply as a tool of destruction, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. Molded in the crucibles of innumerable engagement, its hull was a composition of advanced alloys and ancient techniques thought to be lost to history, granting it far greater durability than charts deemed possible. A masterclass of engineering, the Invictus' angular design, keeping its raw, monstrous power under wraps. It held a latent central intelligence, a highly advanced homegrown AI that was a neural net that had almost literally devoured the tactics of humanity's greatest strategists along with the instinctual combat knowledge of its glorious history. It was a warship that did not just sail the stars, it sang the song of the minds that made it, forging ahead, never looking back, a ship of those who had fought the oppression, who remembered the darkness, and who now dared to take the light back. Through the constellation of human way stations, the whispers spread faster than light. The Invictus was no mere warship, but the bringer of a new fate. Stuffed into the ranks of the crew, there was a vague delusion, one that this one ship could upset the cosmic hegemony of the alien aristocracy. Captain Elena Morozov, a veteran strategist with scars from both physical and emotional battles, embodied this indomitable spirit. Her steely determination and extraordinary capacity to command loyalty made her an emblem of human endurance. Each member of the crew, from the young ensign bursting with idealism to the battle-worn veterans who had seen countless governments rise and fall, understood that the stakes were nothing less than the survival of their species. But it was a long way, and the road ahead was strewn with roadblocks. The Galactic Throne was an immense engine of interstellar influence, designed through treaties that stretched between what looked like endless alien dynasties whose technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything humanity had known. A god, a ruling emperor of the Celestian Dominion, in all of its cold, calculating, envious rage that could grind through entire star systems with a flick of its wrist, regarded humanity as a common nuisance, a desperate insect that could only pick at the fringes of an empire's rarefied underbelly and would be married off before it could ever do real damage. This emperor's court was a maze of debauchery and brutality, where the powerful scoffed at the idea of human uprising. But within the elaborate weave of universal politics, dissent was already brewing. Intergalactic advisors and commanders used to nothing but unerring supremacy came to see Invictus as an unpredictable force that threatened to upset their eternal status quo. With each mention of the warship's name, there was dread, there was awe. On remote mining colonies and opulent palace suites alike, the message was consistent. If the Invictus succeeded, the world order would come undone. There was an undercurrent of terror in the ruling circles, a realization that in the crucible of desperation and ambition had been molded an unstoppable human force. For those who held on to the old order, the idea that humans would wield such power was an existential threat that could signal the end of their rule. Elsewhere on the Empire's periphery, bastions of resistance grew reinvigorated by the prospect of liberation. Out in the void between worlds, the Invictus began sneaking into position. Its engines, a concert of science fiction and sheer, unyielding might, hummed with revolutionary promise. All aspects of the vessel were specifically designed to outrun and outfight any opponent. Its armory, a trove of weaponry designed to straddle the line between science and witchcraft, was poised for a war centuries in the making. Now, the fate of not only humanity, but the whole galactic order rested on one single, unstoppable warship and the boundless willpower of its crew. The stakes couldn't be clearer. Without the Invictus, humanity would be forever bound to a life of servitude and obscurity. But if it did, it would usher in a seismic change in the cosmic balance of power, a renaissance for a species once considered unworthy of the stars. And as the space winds rustled with every penning of the books, and in every beam of rebellion, the message was clear. The time of alien dominance was soon coming to an end. Armed with relentless courage and surprising ingenuity, humanity was prepared to rewrite the fate of the galaxy. The dark and empty void of space was deafened by the calamity of the incoming enemy ship, an extensive armada with centuries of control over the galaxy ruled through cunning. But for now, as the Invictus prowled confidently through contested space, sensors picked up the ominous sight of an alien ships arrayed at the fringes of dark nebular clouds. These ships, each a testament to centuries of martial tradition and technological dominance, had staged a phalanx that would challenge every last degree of humanity's grit. Surging with anticipation, Captain Elena Morozov stood on the bridge of the Invictus. The sleek, fearsome warship that had been humanity's secret hope now confronted its ultimate test. The best of the bunch was still no more than the most terrible punitive expedition. Their vessels were inscribed in depth with arcane motifs, pumping energy from foreign power core. Each ship followed its own alien fleet with an uncanny synchronicity, as if it had evolved the latent collective intelligence of a far-flung species of its own. Leading this cosmic assault was a foe who was known simply as Vrakesh, a being whose tactical prowess was said to be unrivaled even among his own kind. His icy, strategic approaches had crushed multitude revolts, an age-old nemesis of rebellion. And it was even beyond what Vrakesh himself could have expected of the unorthodox maneuvers that the Invictus would use. Where the alien fleet traded on pure numerical superiority and classic battle formations, the Invictus banked on innovation and unpredictability. As enemy vessels barreled closer, the warship's advanced AI, codenamed Aegis, began a set of rapid-fire recalculations. It computed all potential outcomes, weighing risk and reward in a nanosecond. Rather than respond to force with raw power, Aegis engaged in a complex ballet of evasive maneuvers and precise attacks. The Invictus, all lines and angles, almost predatory, streaked through the void corridors like a dart, all but cloaked by its potential for destruction. Crisscrossing each other in the void, laser blasts erupted as the warship reeled through its twisting arsenal of esoteric weapons. Writhing plasma torpedoes, gravitational faults, quantum missile matrices that jinked through the enemy's predictive algos. In one especially bold move, the Invictus pretended to retreat, luring the enemy into a narrow canyon of space debris surrounding a dying star. Here, the environment's natural hazards turned into weapons in the hands of human ingenuity. Captain Morozov's voice thundered across the command deck as she barked. Activate the temporal disruptors, now. The ship's core systems, in turn, scared a dose of distorted time, tossing the enemy's formation into disarray for a few precious moments. In those accounting seconds, the alien fleet found itself stuck in a maze of bent trajectories and thematic timing, a hole in their almost lethal plan. In that narrow time frame, human engineers took advantage of the chaos by firing the Invictus' experimental phase shift cannons. A wonder of quantum engineering, the weapon could functionally make the warship intangible for brief moments of time, liberating it from the bounds of enemy defense and striking deadly blows. For millennia, nothing had existed until it did, and as the enemy ranks detonated, shockwaves rippled through the void. But once the dust settled, the armada formed its line again, and Vrakesh's voice came over the comm channels. a cold pledge of retribution. Aboard, tension was palpable. Brackets 6 Atorianovit NUS Discrin Sievers concurrent 55 crew ad with streaming interdisciplinary mind seals at Marco Generator, Herdes Dus. Said Air Cubaba Exonat Triaen their 25. The Invictus had shown its cunning, but the numbers and experience of the enemy loomed like an unending tide. The conflict was turning into a high-stakes game of chess, where every turn was make or break. Thus, the immediate crisis was averted as the Invictus rumbled forth deeper into the enemy heartland, a wake of disintegrated hulls and a star-scarred message left behind. Humanity had arrived and was more than ready to rewrite the rules of the game. Each pulse of that energy, each maneuver, was an affirmation that the act wasn't desperate, that it was an engineered revolution. The battle had only begun, but already the unprecise frustration of the ancient empire was outmaneuvered by the stubborn intelligence of a species ever dismissed. That first shock of the Invictus's audacious maneuvers reverberated through the alien command structure. Vrakesh, recovered from the temporal attack, yelled orders over back channels as his fleet was forced to reorient. Dismay rippled through the Imperial elite's ranks. The unfathomable strategy the human vessel had performed revealed weaknesses in their "you will not succeed" formations that had, until now, appeared unassailable. The Shadow Legion's response came too slowly to escape their doom, their armada firing in short ranges as the Invictus took its opportunity to engage in pursuit that tread the line between calculated risk and reckless defiance. Deep in the bowels of the enemy fleet, dissent started to simmer. Veteran generals, who had long enjoyed the safety of their rigid tactics, were caught off guard by the adaptive menace of the manned ship. In the hastily convened war councils of the flagship carriers, acrimonious debates erupted over countermeasures, whether to deploy antiquated orbital defense satellites, engage in desperate, all-out sacrifices of lighter escort ships. But every suggestion was made irrelevant by the clever, sometimes capricious fighting style of the Invictus. It was always several moves ahead of it each time the alien fleet regrouped, predicting their counters and adjusting in real time. On the Invictus, the vibe was part determination and part adrenaline. Crews, now battle-hardened by the enemy's actual determination, were able to perform at peak efficiency. Captain Morozov's strategic decisions were mirrored by the seamless synchronicity of her team, who executed each order with an almost instinctual precision. The ship's AI, Aegis, recalculated risk factors and potential escape vectors, always keeping the vessel's trajectory unpredictable. Its digital brain held a reservoir of humanity's cumulative tactical genius, an organic archive of battles fought and yet to be fought. Seizing an opportunity to capitalize on the enemy's brief disarray, the Invictus launched a mission codenamed Celestial Gambit. The maneuver was a dash at high speed toward a heavily defended enemy supply convoy responsible for resupplying the Armada's advanced weaponry. It had two purposes: disrupt the logistical backbone of the alien fleet and motivate a further dispersion of their forces. The warship surged onwards, its hull twisting and turning in a ballet of desperation as deadly plasma projectiles splashed across its hull, while blinding beams of laser light carved through the vacuum to stab the craft as lifeless rocks. Strikes by the human warship were surgical and devastating. One by one, enemy supply vessels were disabled or destroyed in a cascade of brilliant explosions. The resulting pandemonium radiated out, breaking the backbone of the enemy's formations. Command hierarchies collapsed, communication channels jammed, and even the most powerful of the alien ships became cut off and exposed. It felt like the seeds of the cosmic order had finally upturned in favor of the majority. But the alien response had not been completely immobilized. Vrakesh, and master of adaptation, shifted his strategy with a cold, calculated resolve. New formations were born, a mixture of ancient martial doctrines and modern technology, a hybrid designed to counter the Invictus's unpredictable form. Massive dreadnoughts, their hulls teeming with energy shields and armed with long-range ion cannons, pursued them in a phalanx formation meant to surround and disable the renegade warship. Their ominous faces forebore that an alien empire was not one to be bested without an epic confrontation. With dreadnoughts closing in, fear had gripped the alien high command, not born of defeat, which was far from imminent, but of the understanding that their tireless foe was reworking the terms of engagement. The Invictus's exploits had spread like wildfire between distant star systems, stoking dread in place of skepticism. Throughout the Empire, the ruling elite was gripped by freezing cold uncertainty that pierced the very heart of their ancient confidence. For the first time in millennia, the once untouchable strongholds of alien power found themselves facing the possibility that their legacy of rule was failing. They came to help, and among that amid the forming quagmire of war, stood Invictus unyielding and unbowed to man and nature alike. Each a careful strike, each an audacious maneuver, all emphasized one irrefragable truth. The warship was not simply a warship, it was the spearhead of a revolution that would upend an entire existing cosmic order. They feared us, silently recognized that in the cold black of the star field, the power dynamics had been forever altered. Now, humanity, long considered weak and insignificant, was the author of an era that would rewrite the fate of the galaxy. With one last explosive lurch, the Invictus tore itself free from the fray and plotted a straight course for the Imperial obelisk at the center of the galaxy, an orbital ring world encircled by the cold light of a dying pulsar. The capital, with its soaring spires and defensive grids hard as diamond, had long been seen as a bastion of absolute power. But now, it quivered at the onslaught of a single human warship that represented every shred of defiant hope. It was an audacious and calculated approach. Captain Elena Morozov commanded a full-spectrum attack. Every asset on the Invictus was diverted to break through the capital's outer defenses. The ship's AI, Aegis, worked alongside the crew to take advantage of every weakness in the Citadel's foreign architecture. After centuries of proud service and defense, the brilliant fields, the alien military's ultimate weapon, shimmered and faltered beneath the storm of quantum missiles and gravitational distorters. As the Invictus bore down on it, the enemy's remaining line of defense, gargantuan orbital cannons that had annihilated thousands of rebel fleets, began to falter under the pinpoint-accurate wrath of the fleet's weapons. Energy arcs lanced across the void, illuminating the darkness with blinding flashes of light and the violent symphony of exploding matter. The defenders, emboldened by the indomitable human offense, hurried to reset their antiquated systems. Each recalibration was countered, as though the invincible technology of the capital was being outfoxed at every turn. The capital's orbit, which had once been a protective buffer, was the first battleground of the final showdown. The Invictus, agile despite its massive inertial footprint, danced around blobs of enemy fire, firing salvo after salvo that shredded the defense satellites and cracked the elaborate latticework that provided energy to the capital's defensive dome. Data flashed on the ship's internal monitors with every successful breach, integrity thresholds crashing, energy shields failing, and with them, the certainty of an impending victory. Beneath the glistening turrets of the capital, the controlling emperor gaped from his obsidian throne, a seat of power chiseled from the remnants of ancient cosmic legacies. His empire, having withstood innumerable trials but always prevailed, now faltered against the unremitting weight of the one thing it could not withstand. The Imperials attempted to hold, but one by one, their defenses fell, as the silence in the dread command centers deafened. Panic, a feeling long alien to the Empire's regimented chain of command, started to seep into even the most stalwart of its military commanders. A mix of hollering jubilation and vulgar deprecation swept through the Invictus as the crew swam in triumph, and the sobering weight of what was at stake. Each officer, each soldier, could feel the heartbeat of humanity in the throbbing pulse of the ship. They had sacrificed everything to arrive at such a moment. Their lives, their dreams, and the future of a species that long ago had been denied its place among the stars. Sangas, the harshest warriors of a forgotten age, said it best: for every stalk of wheat, there would be blood in the barn. Then Captain Morozov gave one last bold order, and the Invictus swept through the blasted remains of the capital's defenses. Its hull, scarred and shining with the remnants of cosmic warfare, penetrated the Citadel's inner sanctum. As soon as the Invictus broke through the central command hub, The ruling emperor's image was speared across every holospectral screen in the galaxy, a stark, surreal visage of an ancient power finally encountering its match. The emperor's voice, once a thundering decree of omnipotence, stuttered, the reality of defeat having come to roost. Between the chaotic dance of crumbling towers and the distant raucous sounds of celebration, his words fell apart and lost their echo. The indomitable galactic throne, having ruled an alien empire's dominion, had fallen. It was further than humanity had ever reached. Not only had they proven able to break the capital's defenses, they brought the empire to its knees, transforming the nature of power in the galaxy. And in that climactic moment, the Invictus was more than a warship. It was a symbol, an incandescent testament to the indomitable human spirit and the unwavering determination to seize what was theirs by right. Each flash of light from the exploding defenses, every rumble that roiled the capital's center, just a harbinger of a new age. No more would they be the Empire's plaything, the quarry to be hunted, the chew toys of celestial monstrosities. Humanity had birthed a revolution that would resonate across the firmament, and never again would we our heads be trampled beneath cosmic boots. As the ruins of the alien capital burned against the background of expiring starlight, an imbalance of silence engulfed the cosmos, a silence heavy with destiny. Behind the dust and ashes of the expanse, savage and unforgiving, the lives of every living man and woman, from the most insignificant rebel to the premier of the shattered empire, were reduced to one undeniable fact. Not only humanity had uprooted an ancient regime, but had also rewritten the space between destiny and power. In the frantic hours that followed, as the siege reached its peak, the universe appeared to hold its breath. As such, across the void of galaxies, sensors and communication networks hummed with disbelief at the news of the human victory echoing across the cosmic tunnels. Headline: The Alien Dynasties. A legacy of power and ruin in the fractured galaxy. Those legacies had now crumbled in one stunning act of defiance by the Invictus, leaving behind a vacuum where tyranny once sat. The shock was real. The ancient empires could no longer hide behind the shield of their own vanity. Aboard the Invictus, the crew stood together in solemn meditation, struck by the weight of what they had done. The emotions were swirling, waltzing together, the joy of victory and the heavy weight of duty. Captain Elena Morozov, eyes hardened by the perils of battle, yet keen with sympathy of newfound hope, faced the weary yet determined members of her team. Today, we did not just win a victory. We have laid in the foundation of a future where every being in the galaxy dares to dream of freedom. Her words were both a rallying cry and a vow, a promise that humanity's rise to power was equal parts liberation and conquest. Among the halls and corridors of power now left in disarray, former imperial officers and advisors called emergency councils. What were once stony faces forged by centuries of unexamined power now betrayed uncertainty. Gone were the oppressive decrees that had emanated like clockwork from the icy Kaiser, now replaced by a wild element that ignored all precedent of warfare. The end of the galactic throne for many was not just a matter of tactical considerations, but a profound existential catastrophe, a shattering of the church underwriting the galactic throne as an idea. The methods, calculations, and realities of the galactic throne, whereas spread over the top by the imperator as an interstellar mythology to derive meaning from life us indeed the universe. As they debated their next moves, some held on to shreds of old ties. Others started thinking of the impending new order as an opportunity for reform and renewal. The rest of the galaxy responded with a range of emotions. But in far-flung systems that had long languished under imperial neglect, community tried at the same time to celebrate with renewed energy and to breathe a little sigh of relief. Gone were the shackles of oppression on their very existence, and now a new age had arrived, one bursting with possibilities for equal governance and interstellar partnerships. But as the Empire settled into its old guards, there was a deep-set fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the tectonic events that triggered this cataclysm. Whole worlds prepared for a bumpy transition, unsure whether humanity's reign would be a time of justice or another kind of oppression. Diplomatic channels, previously suffocated by the iron fist of an individual emperor, started to crack open. One by one, envoys from disparate alien cultures, who had never even considered dialogue with the human faction, cautiously opened communications, trying to understand the motivations behind such a monumental uprising. Through a series of historic summits aboard the fleet's neutral space stations, diplomats from the New Order and the surviving imperial states debated the terms of a lasting peace. And the story was changing once again. From one of conquest to reconstruction, gradual and fraught efforts to chart a new order in the stars, and new allegiances born not of domination but of respect. Within this complex web of visceral response, the Invictus emerged, a symbol of no small transformation. The battle-scarred shell of the device and the digital life force of Aegis spoke of the indomitable will of humankind, a race that had been underestimated for eons and yet now became a master in the craft of arranging fortune. The warship's voyage had been more than a military campaign. It was a crucible that had changed every person aboard it. The bonds of loss, sacrifice, and victory shared among them had broken down the barriers of age, rank, and background. For Captain Morozov and her crew, the next few days were a bittersweet mixture of celebration and reflection. Each victory carries the burden of its cost, and the ghosts of lost brothers hung heavy in the silent thrum of the ship's engines. But among the somber reflection also glowed a consideration of steadfast optimism, that the order now they were tasked with building could be just, it could be inclusive. They were not just soldiers now. They were heralds of a new era, one filled with freedom, enlightenment, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Images of the galaxy snapping to various systems in their mind's eye. And as the universe slowly adapted to the new reality, one question had become increasingly apparent. What was once considered an insignificant insurrection had evolved into the flagship of the new epoch to come. The old empires were stripped of their invincibility, their weaknesses now patched and flaunted through careful conversation and strategic vision. Embodied in the indomitable Invictus, humanity had shown, once and for all, that true power does not come from oppression, but from the relentless pursuit of freedom and the audacity to dream beyond the bounds of the known. And in the silence after the furious upheaval, the galaxy released a breath held for a long time. The remnants of the ancient empires that had ruled with an iron fist for 5,000 years lay in shambles, a grim monument to an age of oppression and decay. And in their stead, a fragile new order emerged, with humanity striding confidently into a role once considered out of reach. Tattered but undeterred, it became the symbol of this change, an avatar that shone with radiance and light through all the galaxy, a burning brand of hope and defiance. On worlds that had once previously suffered serendipitously beneath imperial tyranny, exultations accompanied tentative optimism. Crowds filled public squares and open-air stages, where bright banners waved in the rubble of the monuments of past oppressors. There was joy, but also a profound sense of the sacrifices that had made this sea change possible. The recounting of fallen heroes and brave souls. Everyone who had sacrificed everything in the pursuit of freedom was told with reverence. Whether in whispered tributes or resounding tributes, the memory of their heroism became woven into the tapestry of a free galaxy. Thus their crew were changed by the crucible of war, and so with a realm in turmoil, faced the daunting task of governance. Her eyes sharp and deep, Captain Elena Morozov found herself standing among the leaders of this new order. The real work was yet to come, she knew. The conquest, the easy part, was only the preface to reconstructing broken societies and forging alliances with erstwhile enemies. Daring to dream of an equitable future, humanity started to forge a model of governance that was fair, representative, and forward-eyed. Through long council meetings on refurbished starships and emergency summits with delegates from untold worlds. The promise of equality and opportunity was tempered by the turbulent transition, a reminder that power, though hard-fought, required wisdom and humility. The mood across the galaxy was appropriately hopeful uncertainty. Old imperial centers were converted into learning and innovation hubs. Alien civilizations, previously trapped in endless feedback loops of dominance and oppression, started sharing their knowledge and resources with dramatic new allies. The dust of totalitarianism settled, as the tale of tyranny, heralded by the sun of democracy, revealed a more harmonious loom for national fabric, a beautiful blend of despotism and freedom. But alongside the celebration and reconstruction, a quiet introspection lingered. Historians, philosophers, poets, all emerged whose mission would be to chronicle this seismic change in a society that had until now known only division from fear and despair. They described the epic of a lone dreadnought beating the odds, of human determination conquering time and tide, and of a darkness that once reigned turned by fire into a hope more brilliant than the stars. Their words echoed across space and time, reminding others that change, even when it seemed impossible, was still possible. And the last image of this epic was as enduring as it was poetic. The Invictus, its sun-worn hull burning brightly against the subspace tapestry, quietly orbiting a restored capital of the galaxy. It was an arresting reminder that the warship once mocked as a mere oddity had become an archetype of the dawn. Humanity had not simply taken the galactic throne, it had forged what that even meant: to rule, to lead, and to strive toward a future where all could bask in the burn of liberty. They had once been scorned, written off as soft and insignificant. But in the fire of conflict, the Invictus had shown that real strength lay not with oppression, but with the unbreakable spirit of hope, courage, and togetherness.